Welcome to the May edition of the TSG Multimedia Video Podcast. This is John Abaticola sitting with
Dan Cortopassi.
And we're here, as usual, and we're here looking at some HO scale models of some locomotives. Now this 769, the blue one, was on the last podcast when you were running it on the little layout that you had. What are you going to show here?
I want to show that this one, if you watched the last podcast, you probably agree with me that this one actually runs pretty well.
I thought it did.
Yeah, it's nice and smooth, and it's got actually a pretty decent mechanism under the hood, you know.
I was kind of disappointed that it was just blue. I had hoped it would be like a Southern Pacific or something. It's accurate though. I mean, it's like something that would exist. So it's like
this is an EMD leasing unit, so it's that's how they were painted. They changed the paint scheme slightly, but it's not too different. I think they were all ex-Conrail engines actually, which is why they were blue, and then the EMD painted the nose white and put an EMD logo on it, and that's about it.
Wow, that really changes it a lot.
Yeah, some of them they didn't even repaint the nose. In fact, I've seen pictures of some of these. This is actually one of the better looking ones. I've seen some of them where the Conrail can opener thing on the side is showing through the blue, and you know they look really ratty.
High quality paint job.
Yeah, so it's kind of a rent-a-wreck, you know.
Maybe they had it painted in China.
I don't know. Anyway, what I wanted to show those, I have a few of these Proto 2000 GP38s. This is another one, and I'm going to take this one away for now. And what I was going to show is that I've had these I've had for quite a while, and some of them don't run so good after they've been stored for a long time. And the reason for that is actually, that I've discovered, is actually the factory lubricants that they put in them actually sort of congeal into this sort of semi-solid gel.
Ew.
And it makes the motor really hard to turn. In fact, I've had some of them apart, and I can barely turn it with my fingers. So and I've actually tried, and I don't know if this one, how bad this one is, I haven't run this in a while, but I had another one where I actually put a decoder in it and it was stalled. The motor was completely frozen up because it just couldn't turn the drivetrain.
Okay, so let me guess then. This podcast is going to be about lubricating the motor. Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this. I'm going to clean all the gunk out of it, and then I'm going to re-lubricate it with better quality lubes.
So what do you use, like a graphite lubricant for these?
No, use different oils. Basically, there's a light oil for like motor bearings and worm gears and that kind of thing. It's a plastic compatible oil. You always want to make sure whenever you're putting any lubricant on a model train that it's plastic compatible, since they have so many plastic parts. And if you don't do that, it can, the wrong kind of lubricant can actually eat away the plastic, and if it's your gears that it's eating away, that's not a good thing. Then there's also white grease, which again is plastic compatible. That's good for gears. And then there's also what they call Conducta lube, which I usually put right here in the little contact points in the side frames, because it's a lubricant, but it also conducts electricity and helps the electrical pickup. So how you get the shell off a Proto 2000 GP38, there's, besides removing the couplers, there's a pair of screws. There's one here, and there's one, it's kind of hard to see, but right in here. So you got to take those out. Those hold the body on.
What a pain.
Yeah, everyone has its quirks, all the different engines. And the Proto 2000 GP38s are kind of their own animal. They're not built quite like the other Proto 2000 engines.
Well, Proto 2000's lifelike, isn't it?
Yeah, well now it's Walthers, but it used to be lifelike.
See, I don't know about these things. I knew it. I thought it was lifelike, but
yeah, and I don't know if
bought out or what.
Yeah, Walthers bought the brand.
Well, I thought Athearn was bought by somebody too, or they bought somebody, didn't they?
Athearn is owned by a company now called Horizon Hobby.
Yeah, I'm totally confused by all this stuff.
Pull the fuel tank off. So it should come off with a little coaxing. Sometimes they get a little hung up in the front. There.
Do you have a crowbar we could use?
No. Okay, so I'm going to set the shell aside.
Crowbar and a hammer?
Yeah.
I'll get that thing apart.
Yeah, well, you want to be able to reassemble it without it being ruined.
Oh, you didn't say anything about putting it back together. You just said taking it apart.
Yeah, so I'm going to take off the DCC plug. Also, one thing about these that's bad on some Proto 2000 engines is that these white wires go to one of the headlights, and they're wired into the track pickup.
doesn't that mean that the light will always be on?
I think some of them are wired into one of the motor leads too, and that's the one that's problematic. Having the light connected to the track isn't such a problem, but having the light connected to the motor lead will fry your decoder.
Oh.
The minute you try to run the engine.
That's no good.
Be careful if you're using this factory plug if you put a decoder in it.
Is that a JST plug?
No, this is just the old 8-pin plug.
8-pin, okay.
So
I knew it was one of those. I learned something when we taped the DCC installation videos.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, for the people watching, we have 2 full-length releases that are about putting DCC into your locomotives. And Dan does a really good job on, what is it, about 12 or 15 different locomotives on those all together?
Yeah, I tried to cover, obviously you can't cover everything, but I tried to cover enough examples that people would get the idea of what to do, Because basically, most diesels, they're pretty similar when you get the shell off, whether it's an Alco or a GE or whatever. They've got trucks, a drive shaft, and a motor in the middle, and the wiring's pretty similar. So I just loosened this wiring so I can get it apart. The next thing I'm going to do is to separate this part of the frame, this cast metal piece from the bottom, because otherwise you really can't get to the mechanical stuff in here. And how you do that is there's 4 screws in here that hold it together.
You always like to mention on the podcasts about our videos because they're pretty cool podcasts and they're fun to watch and you get a lot of good information, but the full-length videos have even more information and more details about what's going on. And frankly, the camera work is better on the full-length videos too, because on our podcasts we're using little HD cameras they're really consumer cameras. On the full-length productions we're using the good cameras that get better control and everything, so you can see everything a lot better.
Okay, I think that's loose enough. Now I don't know if you can see this, but there's quite a bit of grease packed on this drive shaft. And this one's not too bad. It's a little stiff, but it's not as bad as a couple of the others that I had. Somehow I ended up with a bunch of these things. I think they were irresistible eBay bargains. But
that happens sometimes.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each truck off separately. You got to get this cover off tab. You kind of pry up one side, and then you kind of have to hold it, because otherwise it'll snap back on. So actually I'll hold it with the bigger screwdriver. I'm going to try to get the other side. This is the tricky part.
You ever stabbed yourself doing this stuff?
Probably, yeah. There it goes. Okay. So that's that, and now the truck should come out.
What was that thing that just came out? Like a truck holder thing?
This is just the clip that covers the worm.
Oh, I
holds,
see.
Holds the truck into the.
It's this part.
Yeah. It holds it into.
Now it's off here.
Yeah. See, now the truck is loose. It's not attached anymore. This one won't come out because this is also, it retains it. Right away, I see there's a lot of goop in here, so I'm going to take a little micro brush and just kind of get some of this crud out of here. It helps to have a little tissue or something you can wipe it off. It's not so critical in this little box because this little box isn't really touching the moving parts too much, but I like to clean it out anyway.
I was going to say, if you're going to have the thing apart, you might as well clean it.
Yeah, because it's just excess lube, and honestly, too much lube in a model is not a good thing. It's better to have less than too much.
It's really best to have the right amount, though.
Yeah, but you don't need, what I'm getting at is you really don't need that much lubricant in a model. So.
Well, let's show all this crap that's on here. Look at this thing. Look at all the crap on this thing.
Yeah.
That's that excess lube from that little.
Just from this one little part.
That little box thing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sick.
So I might even just get in here and wipe it out a little bit with the tissue.
It's like someone had a little problem there.
Yeah.
Or really a big problem.
So now I'm going to pry the worm out, ignoring you. And look, oh God, look at this. This is so gooey. I hate to even touch it. I don't know if this shows up, but this is just caked with gunk.
Is that the technical term for it? Gunk?
Gunk, yeah, that's the technical term. So I'm just going to kind of wipe it off and twist it.
So this is the degunking podcast.
Yeah. So I'm also going to try to clean out this area. These little bearings should spin really free, and because there's so much grease in here, they're actually a little bit hard to move. And what that translates to is it may make the locomotive, one, take more power to run than it should, and also it may make it run jerkily.
Jerkily?
Yeah, so it's not, instead of running smoothly down the track.
Oh, jerkily. I get it. Yeah, so it'll be jerky.
Yeah. So I'm gonna.
That's not beef jerky for those people out there that are hungry right now.
Now this one doesn't look too bad, but some of these I've also found they actually have junk caked in the actual grooves of the gear here.
Oh, that would just not be good news.
Yeah, so what I like to do, this one has a little bit, just scrape it out with a screwdriver or something. If you have a small micro brush, you can use that too, although sometimes it's not strong enough to pull the stuff out.
You know, what this really relates to is the motor has to work harder, which means it won't last as long.
Right, exactly.
That's the real problem, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's that, and it degrades the performance too. If you watch the last podcast, I was saying about how I like my engines to have a certain level of, ability to move at low speed so that I can get a nice smooth start and stop.
Yeah, so it's more realistic.
Right, exactly. Because we go out and we film the full-size trains, and that's what I see. And so I want my models to act like that, That's all it is, really, is just wanting the models to act like the real thing.
When you think about it, it's kind of cool that through technology they've been able to make something that's so much smaller act like it's really heavy like that.
Okay, so now that I've cleaned most of the excess grease off of here, I'm just going to take a little bit of light plastic compatible oil and just put a little bit on these bearings.
So is this going to make it run quieter too?
Potentially, yeah. But mostly you just want these things to be nice and free.
So I wonder why the manufacturers use that junky, gungy lubricant.
I don't know.
Stuff.
It probably worked all right when it was new, but I've had these engines for a few years, and they've been in boxes not running.
So is this junk you're putting on there now going to turn into clunky, junky crap too?
No, because I'm not using very much. I don't know if you saw, but I used very little, just a little tiny bit. And I'm also going to take this part of the drive shaft off just by prying it out. I'm going to clean grease off of the end of the little bracket that holds it. And then I'm going to also clean this just by wiping it off on a tissue. Obviously you want to do this to both ends, both trucks and all the assemblies. You can clean out the interior of this with a little micro brush. Excess grease in this part isn't so much of a problem because it's not, this whole assembly rotates together, so it's not, if it's a little stiff it won't matter too much, but I like to clean it anyway. It's like you said before, if you got it apart.
Yeah, you might as well clean it if you have it apart.
In fact, there's even grease spattered on the metal in here, which again isn't really going to hurt anything, but why have it there if you don't need to? Okay, so that's the drive shaft, and then the next will come the truck itself. The Proto 2000 GP38-2 uses a truck that's constructed similar to a Cato truck, and there's these little clips on the side. You have to take this little bottom cover plate off, and again I like to use 2 screwdrivers to get it started on one side and then hold it open and then pry the other side. You've got to be careful because these little tabs can break off pretty easily, so you want to do it gently.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm looking at all the parts off to the side here, off camera, and I'm looking at what you're doing. And I'm thinking, if I got something like this taken apart, I'd probably lose track of how to put it back together.
Yeah, well, I've done a few of these, and they're, as I said, most HO diesels are built in a very similar way. So
Probably just finding out where the tabs are and which model, and just making
Yeah.
mental notes, huh?
yeah. So now that that's done, we can pull the truck apart and pull the side frames off. And I usually, this one isn't too bad here on these little bearings, but this is, on this style of truck, this is where the power comes from the wheel, you know, it's just into this metal part. So you want to make sure that these bearings are clean, and of course they also have to spin freely. So that's clean enough there. I'm going to take each wheel and I kind of wipe the ends of those too. Now, especially if you want to, like I like to, when I'm ready to actually do something with this engine, like detailing wise, I'd want to paint this wheel face. So you might even want to swab it with some alcohol or something before you actually paint it to make sure there's no residual grease on there. Because if it's greasy, it won't take paint very well. For now, I'm just going to wipe it just to get the excess off. This one doesn't have too much around the gear, but I always check.
Almost seems like there should be some kind of a little solvent or something you could just dip it in and have the junk come off.
Yeah, you could probably. I don't know what you'd use. You want to make sure whatever you use isn't going to hurt the plastic.
Right.
You could probably use some like detergent or some kind of a cleaner like that.
Dude, carburetor cleaner.
No, that might. Yeah, see, now that might eat the plastic. That's the only problem.
Yeah, but while you're at it, you could make a flamethrower with it.
Well, that's true. That wouldn't probably do the model too much good though either.
No, but it could be like one of those GEs that has flame shooting out the top. Just put the carburetor cleaner in there and light it up.
There we go.
Yeah, that would look real to scale, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Damn idiot.
So the last thing is the actual gearbox, and what I'm going to do with that, first I'm going to wipe the outside because it's got a little grease on the outside. That in itself isn't really going to affect the operation, but again, I just like to keep it all as clean as I can. These are held together with a pair of screws, so I'm going to get those out.
You could really spend a lot of time doing this, huh?
Yeah, I did this procedure on the blue one, you know, when I was working on it. It definitely improved it quite a bit. So you just carefully get this apart.
Now, would you consider taking apart a brand new model and doing all this stuff to it just to be sure that it's up to standard with everything else, or would you not waste the time on a new one?
It would depend on how it ran. If it felt like it needed it, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do it on a case by case basis.
Yeah, these I've kind of taken to doing all of the ones that I have because they've all had the same problem. Like, look, there's a big old hunk of something here.
Did you sneeze off?
No.
Looks like a booger on the thing, dude. Jeez.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull out the gears. And I like to, I like to keep them in order so that I don't mix them up later. All right, so with the gears out, I want to clean out what's in here, and I'm just going to use a tissue and kind of wipe these little, I guess, axles or whatever they are that hold the gears, and also the inside of the gearbox itself to get all the grease out. Just want to kind of clean this all out. And then I'm going to do the other part of the gearbox, the other half. Just, it's making little strings. It's like cheese on a pizza.
Snot.
Well, it is. Look at it. This is disgusting. I mean, it's
gear snot.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. I mean, no wonder the thing didn't run well.
Yeah, you know, it got way too much lube, and whatever they used, you know, I think maybe because it got old.
That's like sticky Vaseline or something.
Yeah, that's kind of what it has a consistency of, you know. And some of them have been even like almost harder than that. Like they almost, I wouldn't say it hardened, but it got sort of semi-hardened.
Maybe they're just trying to make sure that people have to buy more locomotives at some point. You know, like the old, you know, once the warranty's up, the window falls apart and the wheel comes off.
I've literally put a couple of these on the track and they wouldn't move.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And what happened? What would happen if someone doesn't go through all this taking stuff apart and finds out that it's full of junk?
They probably just think it was broken.
Right, and they'd have to get a new one.
Yeah, and there's really nothing wrong with it other than being dirty.
Yeah, it just needs to be cleaned out. This could save people a lot of money.
Well, maybe, you know. And I like to take each individual gear and also wipe them off because they're usually kind of cruddy, like these are.
Yeah, make sure you wash your hands when you're done.
Oh yeah, I feel kind of greasy right now. And I try to keep them, again, I try to keep them all in the same orientation. I don't know if it really would matter if you flipped one over and put it back in backwards.
You wouldn't want to find out, though.
Yeah, I don't think it really makes a difference. But if you notice, they're not all the same size, so they do have to go back in the right order. That is important.
Yeah, I'd be really careful because how long did it take you to take it apart to that level? And then to have to troubleshoot it and try to figure out, I don't know.
Yeah, this isn't something you want to have to do twice, that's for sure. I mean, at least not on the same engine. Okay, so now those are all clean. So now I'm going to take some white grease. This happens to be Labelle 106. It's a plastic compatible white grease. And I'm just going to put a little tiny dab on each of these little spindles or whatever they are where the gears go. And that's plenty.
So is it going to like squeeze down as you lower them on there? Or what?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It kind of, you know, they really, like I said, they don't need much.
You know, it's funny. I wonder how they engineer these things. You know, figure out what size to make the gears and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know. Anyway, then we can put the gearbox back together and then put the screws back in. Don't forget the screws, because one time I forgot the screws and I had to take the engine all apart again.
Oh, just to put those two little screws in?
Just to put the screws back in, yeah.
Oh, no.
That was not a mistake I wanted to make more than once.
Well, that's like putting the gears in wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one step closer than putting the gears in wrong.
Yeah. Honestly, this, I don't think it would fall apart anyway, because it's got all those other clips holding it together. But
yeah, but you don't want to have, I mean, they're there for a reason, right?
Yeah. See, those are turning nice and free now.
Well, it's probably going to run a lot better.
Yeah. I'm also going to put just a little dab, about like that, on the gears themselves. And, you know, that'll work in, you know, as it rotates.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's plenty of lube. That's all you need. Just a little bit like that. So now we just put this whole thing back together. So get the wheels back. This is also a good time, you know, to check the wheel gauge, like with your NMRA gauge, and make sure that they're engaged while you've got them apart. This one's fine. Yeah, okay, these are good. While you have it apart, you know, might as well. If you got to make any adjustments, best to do it now. So the only trick here is you want to make sure that this part, the tower, is toward the end of the engine. So it goes this way, and then we'll put the trucks back together, and the ends of the axles have to fit in the holes in the side frame.
Boy, I mean, it looks like you almost need 3 hands to do this, or 4. That's what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff that would just drive me nuts.
Yeah. See, now I'm going to, as you spin those, and see how nice that spins, it's going to work that grease into the gears. And while I've got it here, I'm going to take some Conducta-Lube. This happens to be made by Atlas, but I think there's other brands. And just put a little drop on the ends of each axle.
So that's going in those little pointy spots?
Yeah, the Conducta-Lube's it's like an oil, but it also conducts, and that's important in this kind of a truck design because electricity has to flow from the wheel into the side frame. And then we just put the bottom clip back on. You have to, okay, that's the wrong way. It goes one way because it's not quite equal length on both ends. And if you put it the wrong way, it'll be like offset. So you want to make sure to get it right. And
that might be one of those sort of idiot-proofing things so that you can't put it together wrong.
yeah, there, that's right.
Boy, those really do run
Yeah, now
smooth.
It's nice and free rolling. And so then we just put it back together.
So obviously, while you have it apart, you would do both of those, huh?
Yeah,
But we're only going to show one here.
Yeah, I would repeat the procedure with the other truck, just like it is here. try to get this back together. I want to make sure when you put it back together that these wires are actually free and not caught between the truck and the frame, you know. And then we got to put the drive shaft back together. I'm going to put a little bit of white grease on the universals here too. Just a little.
It's nice that it's white because it shows up on the camera pretty well.
Yeah. And then we'll just snap this back in. Again, you know, I'm using this very sparingly. You really don't need a lot. And I'll put a little tiny bit right in here.
Maybe worth noting that if you run out of that white grease stuff, it's not okay to use toothpaste on this.
No. Yeah, for God's sakes, there was, I don't remember if it was in Model Railroader or what, but there was actually an article at some point about improving an engine by putting toothpaste in the gearbox to make the gears.
Toothpaste in a gearbox?
Yeah,
that
the
makes
idea.
no sense.
Well, it's. I think way back in the day, some of the Atherns had flash or burrs or whatever on the plastic gears. They weren't made properly, and the idea was that the toothpaste would abrade those off. But I tried that once, and honestly, it made the thing run worse. I ended up having to replace the gears with new gears.
Oh. I was just joking about the toothpaste.
No, that's actually a toothpaste remedy, and it gets repeated a lot, and I really wouldn't recommend doing that ever. Now I'm going to put the worm back in. You want to make sure to get it between the wires, because the wires should be on opposite sides. Otherwise one will get caught underneath.
It could actually get wrapped up in that, couldn't it?
Yeah, potentially. So you don't want that. And also, if wires rub on the drive shaft, they can make noise, which is kind of, not good noise, but kind of, undesirable noise.
Yeah, but if you have a really big speaker in the locomotive, you might not hear it.
Yeah, but it's still, I don't like them. That's another thing I like, is to have the engines run quiet. If you put sound in it, fine, but that's sound you want. I don't like them to be making sound that I don't want. So, but usually it goes hand in hand. If it runs quiet, it's probably going to run fairly smooth too. So then you just basically take up a little slack here and just put the frame back on, and then it's just a matter of putting all the screws back in and reassembling it.
Right, but after you're done with the other side. So.
Right.
All right. Well, but we're not going to show the other side today because this is one of our longer podcasts anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's basically the same procedure. It's identical. You just do the same thing over again.
Very good. All right. So I just want to thank everybody for watching once again. I hope you learned something from this. I know I did. It's not something that I'll probably use anytime soon, but it's still interesting, And don't forget, we also have our audio podcast that comes out on the 15th of every month. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.